Hey, Mr. IS is here, and in this video I will be going over operations of functions. Alright, so this is hopefully going to be a shorter video. Operations of functions are just like adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, and we can do those four things, and there's one more actually, but we'll do it in another video called composite functions, and we'll do that in separately because it's a little bit different than these. And I think these are pretty simple, but I'm going to do it in three ways. I'm going to do an algebraic, so you can see how we do it using algebra. I'll do it graphically, so we can see how these operations look when you do them on graphs. And then numeric, what does it look like given tables, okay? So let's take a look at the operations on functions. The first one is addition. If we add two functions, all we have to do is add the functions together. If we have two functions and we have a minus, we're going to subtract the two functions together. If we multiply them, then we're going to multiply the two functions. The only one that's a little bit different is when we divide two functions, we can divide the two functions, except that we have to make sure that g of x is not equal to 0. So, because remember, if we have something in the denominator that's equal to 0, world's going to come to an end, right? So we can't divide by 0. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these. And I've got my examples up here. And if I go through one example, I recommend that you pause it and then take a look and see if you can figure out the problem. Okay, so here we go. First one, I've got two functions, f of x equals 2x plus 1 and g of x equals x squared. I'm going to add the two functions. So given the operation here, it says, well, just add them. All right, well, I'll just add them then. 2x plus 1 plus x squared. We'll simplify that a little bit so it looks like this. It just put the x squared in the front, and that's commutative property, so that's it. That's all we do. Yes, it is that simple. Okay, so multiply 2x plus 1 times x squared. Now we're going to have a little bit of fun with this, and we're going to multiply it through. So we're going to get 2x cubed plus x squared, and there's our new function f times g. Now I haven't talked about domain and range yet, but there is something different about the domain and ranges when you do an operation on the function. So I think I'll do that on the next video, since I will be going over domain and range. Either that, or I'll have three videos, one on domain and range just graphically, and then one on how do we look at domain and range for operations of functions. But on this one, we just want to see the kind of the simplistic view of just doing the operation. Algebraically, it's pretty simple. We just do it, right? Algebra. Graphically, let's take a look at this. Now, I want you to notice here, I have this in red and this in blue. This is not a piecewise function, even though it looks like two segments. It is two segments, this one being f of x and this one being g of x. So we have two graphs, two functions on the same graph. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to do f of negative 3 plus g of 0. So remember that this f of negative 3 represents the y value where x is negative 3 for the f function. So we're going to look up here on the graph, and x is negative 3. So 1, 2, oh, I meant to put negative 2. Otherwise, we don't have a negative 3 up there. Okay. So here we've got negative 2, 1, 2. All right. So what is the y value at x equals negative 2 on the f function? Well, it's going to be 0, right? So the y value here is 0. So that's what f of negative 2 is. It's that value. It's 0. Plus, what is the y value for 0, x equals 0 on the g function? Well, we're going to go x equals 0 is here. The y value is negative 2. So this value here is negative 2. Okay, so again, this is the y value when x is 0. Okay, we've got negative 2 for the g function. So now we're going to add those two together, and we're just going to get negative 2 as our answer. Okay? All right, let's take a look at this next one. Why don't you try it out using the same idea here. I'll step away and let you try it out. Now step back. Okay, now let's try this out together here. This means we're going to divide f of 0 divided by g of 0. Okay, f of 0 divided by g of 0. And some of you were going, wait, Mr. Maestas, I thought that can't be 0. It's not. It's not 0, right? This is not 0. This is g of 0. This is the y value where x is 0. So where x is 0, the y value is -2. We kind of figured that from the first one right there, right? So we're going to have -2 in the denominator. F of 0 is +2, right? We see that? It's the y value where x is 0. Well, 2 divided by -2 is -1. So our answer there is -1. Okay, let's take a look at this table of values. So this table of values has for x values -1, 0, 1, and 2. Our f values are here, and our g values are here, meaning these are the y values for those functions where these x values are on the graph. Okay, so first one says, what is f of 1 minus g of 2? Well, let's just go and fill that in. F of 1, we're going to follow along this x. X is 1 here. F of 1 is 1. That's it. That's all we do. Okay, so f of 1 is 1 minus g of 2. So we're going to go over our x to the 2. X is 2 here. G of 2 is 0. So our answer here is 1. So that's how we would see it on a table. Let's take a look at the next one. F of -1 times g of 1. So f of -1 is 3. Okay, I go over the x down there. So we got 3. Times g of 1. G of 1 is -1. Which is going to give us -3. Now, just a side note here, because I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking that some of you might be out there going, well, wait a minute. These values aren't the same as what's on that graph. Well, because these are separate examples, okay? I know that I use the same colors for f and g, but these do not correspond to this graphical example. This graphical example is separate, different example from this table over here. Okay, totally different. They don't go together, all right? So, folks, this is algebra. You just add them, subtract them, divide, multiply, do some simplify. Graphically, we look at the graph, we know that we want the y value where the x is given, and we add, multiply, subtract, and divide. Numeric, we look at the table, we match up which ones we want, do the math, all right? That's all there is to operations of functions. Bye.